for me is more interesting that what is the method that other researchers have used to actually see that link between mental health or psychological health and mold.
Yeah.
So how do you have really assess that relationship? What kind of method or questionnaire or, I don't know, experimental work you have done to try to say, yeah, there's a link between the two of them?
And you've obviously, I'm guessing, scanned that literature. What's your sense of it when you look at it? There's obviously enough there to have a look at it.
I mean, we're still working on it. So far, we have found when we talk about mental health, actually there are some conditions, and then I also mentioned psychological health is because of psychological conditions, because what we have found that researchers have reported on depression, on anxiety, on sleep depression, and on cognitive performance. So those are the four main areas that researchers have reported that are linked to mold. Now, what we have found is that in many of the reports, there's not much information about the method that have been used actually to link the two. And this is what I am really interested, because at the moment, I want to go in another direction, which is try to understand the mental health and mold. I mean, we are developing a proposal at the moment to look at that. So this literature review was done to inform actually our proposal and our methods. So yeah, you want to use a method that is a standard method or something that has been validated.
And I imagine there must be an awful lot of confounding factors in a lot of that research, particularly if you're trying to look at if it's at an epidemiological level, it must be very difficult to get the numbers to draw meaning from it. If it's at a case level, you've got the confounding factors of, the environment, the other, because often if you've got damp and mold present, you might have other air pollutants present as well. And we know there's some of those trigger, cognitive attacks and mental health problems. So I imagine it's a really messy picture.
It is complex. Yeah, it is really complex.
Do you know if there's any kind of direct toxicological evidence that mold spores or mycotoxins are actually creating a physiological or mental response in some way? Because that's the kind of the straight line stuff, isn't it? We say exposure to X creates a symptom of Y. That's where it gets easier. But when you start moving it into the environment, where it's is it the lighting? Is it the fact that I'm, let's face it, if you lived in a damp and moldy bedroom, you're going to be pretty depressed about that environment anyway.
Yeah.
Whether or not the mold is having a confounding impact on that or not. That's a really hard one to unpack, I imagine.
It is complex. It is really complex. And as you said before, probably a family that cannot heat their home, that is going to be their bed. Or
other stress in their life, or all sorts of things. Yeah.
How would you just detach that from just mold? And that is when it became super complex.
Yeah. Yeah, as I was just talking to Pavel yesterday about, even trying to untangle the basic indoor environmental quality stuff from air quality, the impact of noise and light and sound in amongst air quality on things like cognitive performance. Like, we're really at the frontier of understanding the combined effects of all of this stuff. It's a really hard space to navigate through. And often a lot of the tests that we've got to determine things like cognitive performance can be pretty woolly, for doing score testing at the end of the workday and things like that. Not the most ideal. So it's a really interesting space. Ultimately, I suppose, and as a practitioner in the space often, I don't care too much in some ways. What matters is the result. And if people are struggling with mental health because they're in damp and mouldy conditions, or they're in damp and mouldy conditions and they have mental health challenges, it makes some sense to sort out the damp and mold. It's a non-harm intervention in that sense, that it's not going to make a situation any worse by improving someone's indoor environment.
Absolutely.
So it's a very low-risk approach to try and mitigate a risk.
Yeah, but what you need, you need to understand that if you're going to improve the built environment, what kind of improvement are you going to propose and do? So you may think that you're going to improve it probably and making a huge effort to try to do it. Maybe it's not the solution. So this is why, you need this kind of research. Now, for me, not having that kind of information is great. I mean, it's more research, more crazy ideas,
Yeah.
more discussion with the students, more discussion with colleagues. And this is when things get quite interesting for me and exciting. I mean, dealing with all the discipline is something that I really love.
Yeah.
So as an architect going to microbiology, then it's just something with a whole journey, but a journey that I'm enjoying quite a lot. And going to health also, I mean, it's fascinating.